like a really interesting economic lesson in terms of sort of breaking down. Believe it or not, there's there's thousands and thousands of research papers written in financial theory about what's happening with Jay Z and Diddy actually right now, and I thought that that would be a fun way for us to talk about. Wealth and money, and kind of do it in a way where it's relatable and related to what you're seeing in the news, and also to think about it in terms of just understanding some of the economic risks that are being faced by Black people that are not being faced by other people. There's a thousand directions I can go with this discussion, but I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna let my brain explore too far because then I'll end up just talking all day. But I'm hopeful that this will help you in terms of understanding how you want to shape your business decisions and how you want your children to build their businesses, right? Black-owned businesses struggle largely, for a few different reasons. One of which is that we don't have the economic culture just yet that creates that sort of long-term sustainability required in massive wealth building projects. There was the sustainability. It's all about emotional discipline and a commitment to a culture where you're okay with taking risks because you've healed, you've dealt with your trauma, so risk doesn't freak you out. You don't give up too easily. You don't run away. This is why I would encourage anybody who wants to be wealthy to get therapy because therapy will help you stay balanced. And a balanced person is better at dealing with risk. A balanced person is better at dealing with partnerships required to build wealth. A balanced person is less likely to throw their money away through things like retail therapy, because you got real therapy and you're not getting therapy by buying a new Gucci bag or throwing your money up at the club, things like that. And also it can breed a type of emotional and economic maturity. I wrote in my book, The Ten Commandments of Black Economic Power, I wrote extensively about economic maturity and how we have to really assess the culture and be really careful about anybody who tells us that this is the culture or that's the culture. Because if the culture involves economic immaturity, meaning throwing your money away, giving it right back to the same Europeans who stole it from you, going out and just blowing a bag at the mall, blowing a bag at the club, all these other things, buying a new Lamborghini for $300,000 when you could have got a nice $50,000 car. Little things like that are reflective of economic immaturity because economic immaturity is basically the way I kind of break it down in my book is it's when you spend your money like a child, right? If you think about the way children spend money, when children spend money, what do children do with their money? Answer in the chat. If a 5-year-old gets a hold of $1,000, what do you think the 5-year-old is going to do with their money? Do you think the 5-year-old is going to say, "Yeah, I'm going to go and put it in my 401k, and I'm going to go and buy some shares of stock, and I'm going to invest it in some tax deferred assets," or you think the 5-year-old is going to just run straight to the candy store? Right? That's what they're going to do, right? So as adults, we don't go to the candy store all the time, but we might go and get grown-up candy, which might be alcohol or drugs or something like that, right? We may not go to the toy store, but we might go to the Mercedes dealership. That becomes the toy store for a grown man. A grown man might go to the Mercedes dealership, then go get a bottle of something, run to the club, whatever it is, and also or even basic stuff like buying really expensive clothes or just spending money on things that don't add value, that don't grow in value. Anyway, one of the things I would mention um, is that when you're talking about what's going on with Jay Z and Diddy, I would start the conversation, the economic part of the conversation, by saying that when you talk about Jay Z, Diddy, economics, and Black Power, I'm going to be honest with you. All through the years, and again, you're talking to a guy who kind of, I'm not really, I've never been famous in that kind of a way, but I know famous people, right? So I don't know Jay Z, but I know people that know Jay Z. Like I know Russell Simmons really well, and Russell Simmons worked with Jay Z and all that stuff. I don't know Diddy, but I've been invited into that space, and I chose not to participate in that space because I was never comfortable with some of the weird things that were happening there. I'm not comfortable with any situation that might make me vulnerable in that way. And so one of the things I can tell you is that from the very beginning, I always had a feeling that guys like that are always in danger. And what do I mean by that? Well, here's the thing about you live in this place called America, and in America, black men who have a certain amount of perceived power, a certain amount of visibility, a certain amount of wealth. If you know your history, if you study your history, And again, this is history you should study on your own. This is not history you should get from a public school. Public schools don't teach Black history properly. They never did. So I don't care if they take it out of the school or add it. You were never getting Black history in a significant way anyway. You'll notice that the number one variable that determined whether a Black man was going to be taken out or jailed was driven by his economics, right? If he had wealth and he appeared in a way that was strong, masculine, or even cocky, God forbid, then there was going to be a threat. In China, when I used to teach in China back in 2006, my students told me about a saying that they have in China where they say that the fattest pig always gets slaughtered. That's what they're taught as children. They're taught in China that the fattest pig always gets slaughtered, which is why you don't want to do what rappers are trained to do. And if you look at the history of Diddy in particular, and then Jay Z kind of a little bit to some extent, they were in a space in an industry that was very economically dangerous because what do rappers do? Rappers are not humble, quiet people. They are peacocks. Right? They're peacocks. They want everybody to see them, right? You want your colors. Like, with peacocks when they want to mate, when the male peacocks want to get some, they show all their colors and their wings get all real big and they're like, look at me, look at me, look at me. Right? So the peacocks become the fattest pigs, right? You're on the covers of magazines, you're getting all the shine. You walk in the club, and the DJ's like, "We got Diddy in the club, y'all." Blah, blah, blah. Right? That happened to me. I did that. One time I went to Vegas. Michael Baisden was there. I saw Michael Baisden, very nice person. He came up and he said hi and everything. And I walked in this club in Vegas, and because I was with one of my friends that likes to do stuff like that. I don't really hang out in clubs like that. But I went in the club. They were like, "We got Dr. Boyce Watkins in the building." I was like, wow, I feel so cool right now, but I'm never coming back to this place because I don't, that's not my life. No disrespect to people who like to go to the club, but I'd met my wife in the library. I didn't want to meet my wife in the club. Now, with that being said, though, um, unfortunately, a lot of attention comes with that, and with attention can come some consequences and some negativity. If you remember, anybody remember the movie American Gangster, where Denzel's character Frank Lucas, his wife got him that big fur coat with the big fur hat. My father used to have one of those, by the way. I probably have a picture of it somewhere. And I guess this is back in the era where Hollywood taught black men that they want to behave like pimps, which pimps, by the way, are sex traffickers, which generationally speaking, the next generation, Snoop's generation, they're imitating the pimp culture because they saw it from their fathers. And next thing you know, what is Diddy being arrested for? Sex trafficking, right? Because you're in a cultural space that unfortunately came to believe that you can glorify trafficking. Don't believe me? I don't know what you heard about me, but you can't get a dollar out of me. Blah 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 blah. Cause I'm a blah 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 PIMP. You remember that song? You remember that was a hit. That was the number one hit, right? So pimping, sex trafficking, that culture became very popular. But anyway, let's circle back. Frank Lucas, his wife in the tradition of the pimp culture, which was pushed heavily by Hollywood in the 1970s, buys him a fur coat and a fur hat. He goes to the Muhammad Ali fight and sits in the front row with the fur coat and the fur hat. Well, the FBI guy is taking pictures of the people he thinks are the biggest targets, and then he turns his camera like, well, who is this guy in the front row? Who's this peacock? Who's this big peacock with the fur coat and the fur hat, right? Getting all the attention, shaking hands with all these important people. Oh, he must be somebody. He must be a big fish. And we make our money by catching the big fish. Next thing you know, he's on the radar, right? So ultimately, the big peacock gets on the radar of both your friends and your enemies. You get on the radar of women, of course, because women, naturally, biologically speaking, I wrote about this in my book, Financial Lovemaking, which, by the way, you can have a free copy of that book if you want, a free e-copy. Go to boyceandalicia.com, boyceandalicia.com. I wrote a whole book about love and money. So you go, so in this book, I studied extensively that long held connection between economic resources and female attraction. Most women, just whether we like it or not, they're gonna, on average, have an interest in the man that's able to provide something, right? So it's kind of unrealistic to say, would you love me the same if I had no money? That's like a beautiful woman saying, "Would you love me the same if I grew a beard and gained 400 pounds?" Of course he's not. That's not that's not logical. People are crazy these days, right? But anyway, with that said, so the fattest pig gets slaughtered. Hip hop has a culture that trains you to be a peacock. When I was on the phone with Kanye West, it was an impossible conversation because he wanted all the attention on himself and everything was about him. My buddy Damon Dash, who I love very much, unfortunately, one of Damon's faults is that Damon loves to be the center of every conversation that he's in and the most important person in any room that he's in, which is a liability when it goes bad for you. That is in economics that could literally be calculated as a risk factor that you're taking in, but we don't know it because we think that that's just par for the course. So circling back to Diddy and Jay Z. Kanye's probably mentally ill. Yeah, my wife was listening in, and she would love to have a therapy session with him. You know, my wife's a good therapist, but Kanye don't like therapists. He apparently that makes him angry or something. I have no idea. Anyway, with that said, here's the deal. With Diddy and Jay Z, I saw a discussion. I saw someone say online something that I agree with for the most part. They said, "Are Diddy and Jay Z an example of a country that likes to take down powerful black men?" Now I'm gonna ask you all this question, and I'm gonna give you a response on that. I'm gonna ask you all the question first. Do you think that America has a habit of wanting to take down powerful black men? Give me a yes in the chat if you agree that if you're a black male and if you're wealthy and if you're powerful and if you're visible, you're going to be a target. There's going to be people coming after you. Bad things are going to happen, right? The government, the feds, the enemies, yeah, the ops, right? The ops is like your opposition. For those that don't know, yeah, it's gonna right. Okay, so here's the interesting part about that, right? Um, that is 100% true. And to some extent, it's true for really everyone, actually. Anybody that's rich and powerful, whether you're talking about Jay Z or Elon Musk, is kind of the same thing, right? Like half the country would love to see Elon Musk go to jail. Elon Musk has people that are tracking his airplane because you can literally get the tail number. You guys know I did the pilot training. I learned that if you get a tail number on an airplane, you can get online and look at the whole route that plane just flew. Like, so I would do my flight lessons with my instructor and he would say, "Here, let's type in the tail number and look at your pattern, how you did your flying patterns." And you can do that, right? So you got that right now. The difference I think with Elon Musk versus Jay Z is that Elon Musk is a white boy, and there are benefits to being white in America. There is such a thing as white privilege. I believe that that's true, and I believe that over time, if we do things properly, I believe we can manufacture some black privilege. I think that we just have to love ourselves enough in order to do that. That takes work to do, but we can do that too. But with that being said, though. Um, that is there's no question about that, right? There's no question about the fact that being black means that to some extent you're playing the game under a different set of rules, a different set of circumstances, which means that you have to do calculus and you can't do algebra. You got to play chess, you can't play checkers. Um, the challenge to that, though, the thing that makes it complex is that you can make that statement about the fact that Jay Z and Diddy are going to have a harder time as black men without necessarily saying that they're innocent. Um, I don't think they're innocent. I don't. And I because I know the culture. I've been a black man my whole life now. I plan on sticking to it. It's been pretty cool so far. And one thing I can tell you is that I followed hip hop culture very closely. I've been a part of it. I love hip hop. I know a lot of rappers. I've been up in there, and I would see stuff happening. I'll give you an example. Somebody told me about a rapper, and I'm not gonna say his name because he knows me, and he would get mad if I told this story. But he says that he went to the studio and this guy was coming to the studio, and everybody was talking like, "Oh, so and so's coming to the studio. Oh man, it's about to be lit." And this guy in this rapper, he came in the studio and he had a whole parade of like 20 strippers all behind him, like 20 women, like half naked, all came out right out of the strip club and followed him like the Pied Piper to this studio. And he says suddenly the whole studio became a strip club. And he literally said, every woman who went every he said the B word. He said every blankety blank that don't want to get naked got to get the F out right now. Right. And so you can understand how these situations create spaces and scenarios for allegations to come out years later, lawsuits to come down the line, reputational risk, things like that. That's a real thing. And when I heard that, I said, "Man, what did you do? Did you get? I hope you got out of there." And he said, "Yeah, I left. I left. I wanted to meet him. I wanted to work with him, but I could not be in that space, so I just got out of there." Not just because this particular person was a person who wanted to, he didn't get into all that stuff, but also because he didn't want to get arrested. If something goes wrong, if one thing goes wrong, or somebody makes an accusation, then the police are knocking on everybody's door. If somebody, God forbid, somebody gets assaulted, it turns into a big Diddy party. Everybody's going down, everybody's in trouble. And here's the thing, this is where the economic risk comes into play. This is something that your sons have to understand, is that when a black male has resources and he's even in an environment like that, that makes it easy for people to come and take his wealth. Because even if you didn't do anything, you've been accused now. So now you got to go pay a lawyer. That's thousands of dollars going out of your pocket. That should be going to your kids, but instead it's going to the lawyer's kids, right? Then maybe a lawsuit comes along. Gloria Allred gets the victim together. Maybe she's the victim, maybe she's not. Doesn't matter, because it's her story that's going to matter, not yours. So she gets on there, and if she's a good actress and knows how to cry, then Gloria Allred might get you to write that $2-3 million check, not because you're guilty, but because you need it to go away. Right? They understand, again, they know that you will write the check just to make it go away. Why? Well, because you have operated in this very toxic space, this crazy space, and at the same time, you're doing brand deals with Pepsi and Mountain Dew and Nike. And Pepsi, Mountain Dew, and Nike, by very nature, are economically conservative. They don't want nothing to do with none of that stuff that happens in the mud. They want to stay as far away from it as possible. And this is true for anybody who has wealth, anybody who's doing business with corporate America. But for rappers, it's really hard because you live in a space that is fundamentally unsound. You live in a space that is borderline chaotic. You live in a space where the risk is through the roof. People are getting killed over here. People are getting hooked on drugs over there. Some people getting assaulted over here, harassed over there. And so all this really breeds criminal outcomes, criminal liability, like people going to prison, stuff like that. Shout out to Bobby Schmurder. This breeds lawsuits, massive lawsuits. Like, oh, I'm going to sue you just because I have a good story, and or maybe something really did happen, and because I know that it's my word against yours, and the public is going to hear this story, then you're going to lose money and you're going to lose brand reputation because you never learned that you are a walking corporation. You are a walking brand. Brand values are built largely on trust and public perception. So if I can just disrupt your public perception, then you're losing already, and you're going to lose so much money that you got to pay me that 5 million, or you're going to lose 20 million. What's it going to be? Which hard choice are you going to make, to lose 20 million or lose 5? I thought so. So really, the inability to think strategically about the protection of wealth just becomes very risky for anybody who's in that space. I look at a guy like Diddy and I say, wow, it's so sad that you spent 30 years dancing like a teenager and busting your ass. I don't know Diddy, but I know he seems like a really hardworking guy in between all the Diddy parties and stuff. I mean, this man been working, and he's probably gotten surgeries, and he still looks like a little kid. He still moves and dances and acts like it's 1998. And you've been doing that for 30 years, bro, and you're about to lose every single thing you worked for. You spent your whole life working your ass off just so that other people can have your money now. Other people are going to get your money. The lawyers are going to get your money. The victims are going to get your money, perhaps deservedly so. It's up to you to decide how you feel about that. All these the PR teams are going to get your money, right? And so really, what I'm going to say is that I think that the most interesting part of the Diddy Jay Z conversation is not whether they're guilty or innocent. I don't care about that debate so much because I've never been around when either one of these men were having sex. The more interesting part is hip hop, this multi-trillion-dollar industry that trains you to not protect the wealth that you're accumulating. It does not train you on the most important aspect of wealth, which is protecting what you got, being careful and thoughtful about preserving the wealth that you have. And I think Jay Z did a better job than Diddy, because if you notice, Jay Z made a transition. Diddy stayed 25 years old for about 30 years. He pretty much still did the same things in 2022 that he was doing in 1997. Jay Z evolved. Jay Z became the businessman, and he took his social media down. He made himself like a piece of art. He made himself rare, and you rarely heard from him. You rarely saw him. Right? He kind of did that masterfully. He made the strategic alliance with Beyonce to get married and become this massive power couple. Right? Then he makes these deals with, and then he becomes more acceptable to corporate America. So he ends up getting this deal with the NFL, and the NFL becomes one of the institutions that appears to be protecting him in the middle of some uncomfortable accusations. Right now, I'm gonna just say this: if I was talking to Jay and I was his friend, I would probably, which I'm not, I would probably say, yeah, yeah, they're gonna stand by you, huh? Right? Okay, yeah, yeah. I wouldn't bet money on that, man. I think they're just good at saying the right thing at the right time. We will stand by him no matter what. Yeah. Let one more allegation come out. Let one or two things come out in the public, and watch how the NFL changes their tune. They didn't build $100 billion brand for nothing. They're not sitting on over $100 billion in wealth and net worth because they are just ride or die with anybody in their own little situation. They don't do that. They don't do that with the athletes. I don't think they're gonna do that with him. Right. So I would be really skeptical about this idea that they're gonna just stand by him till the end, because nobody does that in the world of business. And the other thing too is that if you look at the structure of something like the NFL, the owners, the management, those individuals are relatively conservative. Now, every now and then there's a scandal. I think Bob Kraft, the owner of the Patriots, got in a little situation with some women. Well, they just kind of, dealt with it and went through the bumps, and he didn't make it worse, and it just went away, right? Jerry Jones has had some accusations of racism or whatever, and they're like, oh yeah, yeah, okay, we'll just ride the storm out, and then it's gonna go away, which it did. And for the most part, though, there's a conversation about conservatism, which is in contrast to the athlete rapper culture, which can be a little bit wild and crazy. And so really, when I look at Jay Z and Diddy, I kind of really am curious as to how Diddy's addictions became so out of control that he began to falsely believe that maybe he was above the law. I really wonder about that, because he did a lot of things out loud that just don't really work for somebody trying to sit on top of $1 billion and protect that. When people already want your money. When you get that rich, people are already eyeballing what you have. People are already trying to figure out. They're already trying to catch you slipping. They're already waiting for you to slip. But when you just are living on ice skates, then I don't understand how you even think that that's going to be something that's going to be with you until old age. I just don't understand that. Now, and with that being said, I want to move into some financial theories in particular that relate to a way to perceive what you're seeing in the media. And before I do that, I hope you allow me 1 second to make a couple of announcements for the Black Business School. Tonight, Andre Hatchett is doing something on how to make money as a mobile notary. So that's going to be later on tonight, and you can do a free trial with his pro. He's really good at what he does. A lot of the people that work with him do really, really well financially. And I'll send out that link. I'll text it out to you. I'll give the information on how to receive that in a second. Miss Asada, you guys know we educate our own kids here in the Black Business School. We don't really need the public school system. So Miss Asada is doing some work with kids, bringing kids together to teach them mathematics. All of our kids need to learn math. They need to learn how to think and process information. So I'll send that out to you. Third, we have a Black financial therapy department in the Black Business School. We're the only institution on the planet that has this. And because we're trying to break down the psychological barriers that exist to building Black wealth. You cannot build Black wealth if you do not have your mental health. So Dr. Alicia, she's doing her book club tonight, and she's also doing her mental health Monday tomorrow. So in the book club tonight, she's doing how to have healthy, happy relationships, how to get rid of the drama, create a drama-free space so you can thrive and be productive. A lot of y'all in the middle of drama, that's why you can't get where you want to get to. Well, Dr. Alicia is really good at minimizing drama. Believe me, she's my wife, and I'm highly traumatized. By the way, I did not know. I took the trauma test and I scored real high on the trauma. So I probably create drama and don't even know it. I'd be thinking it's somebody else's fault, right? So she's good at managing that. So she's doing that tonight. I will send you all the link tonight if you want to join. So here, if you want to get the links to come to these things, pull out your phone, text the word morning, MORNING, to the phone number 87948. So text morning to 87948. I'll send you the information, and all that's going to be going down in the Black Business School tonight and tomorrow, and etc. All right, so here's what I want to break down in terms of Jay Z and I was going to say Jay Z and Beyonce. I'm going to say Jay Z and Diddy, in terms of some financial theories that you may want to consider in terms of understanding what's happening to them. And what I'm seeing in terms of why I'm concerned about them losing their wealth. Well, in the area that I wrote my dissertation on was called behavioral finance, and behavioral finance is kind of linked to sort of the emotions behind money, and particularly stock markets, things like that. And one thing about rumors, one thing about accusations that makes black men very vulnerable when they're high profile and have lots of wealth is that accusations can stick even if they're not real, even if they're fake. And so there's something called the availability heuristic, where people overemphasize recent or dramatic information. And what that does is that can reduce trust, which can reduce your value in the eyes of the public, because every person is a little bit like a stock price. You're a little bit like a stock price. So Diddy, if he was a stock, his value would have been several billion dollars, maybe 50, $60 billion in terms of long-term economic value. Maybe a couple years ago, now that stock has collapsed. So if Diddy were a stock and you were able to invest in Diddy in say 2018, your stock would have collapsed by now because just the accusations alone, even if they weren't true, and there appears to be some merit here. I think that there's a lot to look into. That would actually reduce his value as a stock. Also, there's something called reputation risk. So, a lot of companies in their stock price, and remember, Diddy and Jay Z are corporations. That's what they really are. They're not like Jay Z says, "I'm a businessman." He is a business, and he's smart to understand that. Well, there's in a stock price, which Jay Z, the business, has a stock price. There's something that based on what they call a trust premium. And the trust premium is really based on the confidence that people have in you, the confidence people have in your leadership skill, the confidence people have that you're ethical, that you're not doing anything crazy, right? So when rumors hit you, that confidence disappears. So the trust premium drops, which ultimately is a massive has a massive impact on your wealth. So if you notice when Diddy got the accusations, what did all the corporations do? When Diddy first started getting accused of things. What did they do? Do you think they wanted to do business with the revolt? Do you think they were rushing to get Diddy on the phone so they can make a deal with him? What do you think? When Tiger Woods, for whatever reason, decided he wanted to sleep with 10 million porn stars without a condom, and it got public, and then this whole other thing happens with his wife and all that. Do you think corporations were rushing to make deals with Tiger Woods? No, they weren't. It doesn't mean he had no deals. It doesn't mean no one stuck by him, right? There were some people who said, well, he's still the greatest golfer in the world at the time, but it really affected him, right? Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby used to sell everything from Coca-Cola to pudding pops. Now Bill Cosby can't sell anything. Now Bill Cosby can't make a nickel endorsing hardly anything, except maybe he could probably make some money endorsing products in the black community because I've noticed that there's a difference in terms of how black people perceive someone versus how white people do, and that makes sense, right? I think that the way black people might see it is they might say, yeah, maybe Bill Cosby did these things that he shouldn't have done, but we also see the reality of America, right? We know that white guys do stuff like this a lot, and it just doesn't make the media. One I mentioned Damon Dash earlier, so I'll mention him again. One thing that Damon did that I really was impressed by was he actually confronted Harvey Weinstein for his behavior before the rest of the country did. I got a call from that guy Vlad from Vlad TV. I was on there a few times. I don't do that stuff anymore. But Vlad called me to kind of warn me about Dame. He said, "Well, he went off on Harvey Weinstein in public." And I was like, "Who's Harvey Weinstein?" And he's like, "Yeah, well, he's this big shot. He's important in Hollywood." This is about like 2017, right? This is back before all the stuff happened. And I said, "Well, what?" I said, "Really? What did he go off on him for?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "Dame's crazy. Dame's crazy." Well, then one day I'm talking to Dame on the phone, and Dame just casually brings up the Harvey Weinstein story on his own. He likes to talk a lot, and the stories are really good. And one thing he said, "Yeah, there's this SOB named Harvey Weinstein, and he would go in the restaurant and do these crazy, nasty things with the girls in the kitchen." And I was like, I cussed him out. I said, "Man, why are you doing that stuff in the kitchen? That's just nasty. People got to eat here, right?" So it was interesting that he confronted him before the public did, right? And here's the deal, right? We know for a fact that there are hundreds of people like this in Hollywood, if not thousands. So what really does pop in where race does rear its ugly head is we know for a fact Diddy ain't the only one. There was thousands of people who went to them damn parties. We know Bill Cosby ain't the only one. We know R. Kelly ain't the only one. So it does become complex because there is a double standard in the sense that so with the white guy, I'm supposed to respect his art and his skill and not care about what he does in his personal life. But with the black guy, because his personal life is out in public and we're doing documentaries about it, I'm supposed to make judgments about his art and skill based on that, right? So there is a different standard. I will say this: I do believe there's a strong chance that if Bill Cosby were a white guy, he wouldn't have been become the Bill Cosby that we know, right? Now it is not, and but that makes it hard, right? Because I've never been a person who sat around and said, "Oh, I know he's innocent. I know he didn't do nothing. He didn't do nothing. He was innocent." No, come on, it's like stop. You got to be like you have to have zero brain cells to really truly believe that there wasn't some shenanigans happening. There were, and it's up to every individual to decide how you want to balance that out. But we know that there is a double standard there. If they did the white guys the way they do the black guys, then all the white guys would be going down, right? Not just Weinstein, but a whole bunch of them, right? So with that being said, though, I think that there still is a reality that has to be faced. There's a real economic reality that we have to sort of pay attention to, and what that is that we have to understand that unfortunately, being black in a white space comes with specific risks that we have yet to fully understand or to acknowledge. Um, I don't dislike white people. I promise you. If you're white, I have nothing against you, but I don't really trust that environment. I don't trust the way white folks deal with a black man like me because I saw how y'all did Malcolm X. I saw how y'all did Martin Luther King. I saw how you do black folks that are in that space, even when they're doing nothing wrong. I don't want it. So you're not looking at a guy who says, "Gosh, my dream is to one day get a show on CNN, and I can't wait to be mainstream." And people will say they'll be like, "Wow, well, the work you're doing so good, Doc, the work you're doing, Doc, is so good. One day you're gonna be mainstream. You'll be like Dave Ramsey." I'll be like, "No, I'm not." One day you'll be on national TV. No, I won't. I don't want to be. I've been on national TV. You don't know my background. I was on national TV every other day 12 years ago. Go check the record. I was on CNN a lot. And do you understand that when I became super mainstream, it became a freaking headache because white folks are mean to black people like me. They don't understand people like me. They don't get it. I talk about racism for 2 seconds. They go, get him, when I was in Syracuse, they tried to fire me in Syracuse. Yo, you got go look it up. Bill O'Reilly did a whole show. It was the number one cable news show in America. He spent the whole hour calling me a racist and all this other stuff. And it is so it's so ignorant. It's like borderline just untarded. I'm not gonna say the re word because you're not supposed to. It's like untarded or undertarded because literally they sat there and they talked about me for an hour, but did not even bring me on to explain my point of view. But I understand this because if you look at, for example, men like Farrakhan, when Farrakhan was allowed to explain his point of view, he won a lot of people over because Farrakhan's right about a lot of stuff, right? Farrakhan's right about racism. When Malcolm X would go on national TV and give his point of view, he won a lot of people over. So that's what made him very, very dangerous. If they'd done, what I think if I was in their shoes, I would never have let him talk because the man was smart, charismatic, much more so than I am. So the point of this is to say that I think that the one of the big challenges of rappers, besides the fact that they are convinced by their overseers to embrace a culture that is financially reckless and risky, they also somehow get to the point where they start to think that they're not black anymore. Like I'm not black, I'm OJ. OJ Simpson went through that too. They used to try to get OJ involved in black causes, and he was like, I'm not touching none of that because white people love me. Well, they love you until you get accused of killing a blonde haired, blue eyed white woman. Then at that point, you become public enemy number one. So again, I don't plan on killing nobody. I don't plan on going to no Diddy parties, but just the trauma of watching how prominent black men are treated and then having my own experience, where the O'Reilly factor in Fox News was working overtime to get me fired from the job I'd spent 12 years in school trying to get. I just said I don't want no parts of that. I want independent power. I want sturdy power. It means I might have to do the work for years. It means I might have to go raise my own money. I might have to go find my own people. But when you do it that way, when you build something that's more solid, it's harder for them to knock it down. But you got to pick your spots. You got to know who you want to be. And one thing that I don't think any of our children should want to be is this guy who sort of embraced by white America, because I think that can be very fickle because there's a cultural divide and there's a history of racism that we deny, that we don't pay attention to. Like we don't know what a lynching looks like when it's actually happening. And so do I think that Diddy is being lynched? Yeah, I kind of do, but not in a bad way. Not because Diddy's a good guy. I don't think I didn't want to hang out with this guy. I didn't want nothing to do with what he was doing. I think that what he did was absolutely terrible. But it's interesting because I really suspect that there are white dudes that are just as bad as him. Remember, he got created by them. Without his creators, there would be no Diddy. There'd be no Diddy without a Clive Davis. There's no, and they knew. Not only did they, thank you, Tia. Not only did they create him, but they knew what he was doing the whole time. The Democratic Party knew what he was doing when they did the vote or die campaign with him. They knew what he was up to, and where does this come from? Well, the reason I suspect this to be the case is because when I look at Diddy's connection to Davis and the music industry and the corruption in the industry and how it has these mob ties, I think about the CIA and they're working with the mob. If you don't know, there's a lot of people that believe that Dr. King was taken out by the CIA, which worked with the mafia to do their dirty work. There's a long history of connection between these government agencies and the mafia. So I looked at this and I said, okay, I wonder if there's a scenario where they're like, okay, we need to get somebody elected because we know you're doing dirt and you don't want us to draw attention to your situation. We'll let you get away with your crimes as long as you play ball for us. So my honest suspicion is that Diddy's clearly problematic behavior has been brought to light because he stopped playing ball with somebody. Maybe one day he woke up. Maybe he watched the Boyce Watkins video and said, "To hell with y'all! I'm not doing." That's a very dangerous thing. You got to be real careful if you watch, if you're in this space and you internalize anything I say, because that will probably get you in trouble with massa. When people call me from their job and they're like, "We're having diversity day and we'd like to have you as a speaker, Dr. Watkins," my first instinct is to say, "Don't do it." Don't do it because I don't want to get you fired because you're nice and safe in that space. You're in deep cover. They're not messing with you. But if you bring me in, and even if I'm on my politest day possible, if they Google me once, you're gonna be in trouble. So if you have a job and you are the diversity manager at some corporation, just and if you ever bring me in to speak, just do it at your own risk. Be really careful. Instead, a better approach might be to slip some information to your colleagues, like the slaves used to do. Like we had the Underground Railroad. Just slip them information and invite them into class, and then they can kind of sneak away and listen to me. But don't have me up in that office meeting your boss because they're going to Google me, and when they Google me, they're going to associate you and I, and then at that point, they're going to identify you as a certain kind of black person that has what they call an extreme black identity, which to me just means you just love yourself and you want better for yourself. You want change. You want the community to be better. You want to have some independent black power. You want our children to be better off than we were. You want us to improve. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And the idea that there are people that are so threatened by black intelligence is really an indicator to tell you what kind of country that you actually live in. And so as we're kind of building our kids to prepare for this future, this is one of the reasons why it's so important for every intelligent black child to learn how to build their own way of making money. Not necessarily be an entrepreneur. I'm not saying quit your job and start a business. I'm saying at least have some ability to develop some sort of structure of your own so you're not knocking on doors and getting people to let you into whatever institution that they built before you. That doesn't always work. Sometimes they don't have enough seats at the table for all of us. And so it's up to us to say, okay, well, you ain't got no seats at the table. We're going to go build a table because we have some architects that know how to build a building, build a table, develop an institution around that building and that table, and we're going to be okay. You are enough. You really are enough. And if you don't believe that, then I feel sorry for you because you'll spend your whole life bending over and sacrificing just to get some small acknowledgement in a society that I don't think really wants to acknowledge you for really who you are. I think it's a problem that the most famous black men in America are athletes, rappers, and comedians. If I was to ask any of you in this room, how many of you, give me a yes or no, how many of you make money right now playing a damn sport? How many of y'all are that are over any of any age? Give me a yes or no. How many of you in this room make your the bulk of your income dribbling a basketball, throwing a football, playing tiddlywinks? I don't care what the sport is, swimming, golfing. How many of you do that? No, the answer is no. Most black people don't make no money playing sports. You got to be born like some sort of superhuman Adonis. You got to be 6'8", 240 pounds. You got to run a fourth. My buddy that I saw at my mom's funeral the other day, my buddy Tony, he ran a 4.3 in the 40-yard dash. And I said, man, I didn't know you were that fast. I said, I thought I was always slow. He said, I tried out for the Seahawks. I said, how did it go? He said, man, it was tough. So even Tony, who ran the 40-yard dash in 4.3 seconds, which is miraculously fast, didn't even have a shot at making the Seahawks. So these athletes are very, very rare. They're the top 1% of the top 1% of the top 1%. And if you're in that category, God bless you. The Lord gave you a gift. Congratulations. It's a gift that could potentially, if you're lucky, it could pay you maybe for about 7 years. But you've got about 45 or 50 years or 60 years of adulthood. So they're going to pay you for about 5 to 7 years. Really, the average NFL athlete actually makes about money for about 2.5 years. So the NFL doesn't stand for National Football League. It stands for not for long. So you're going to get a big burst of money for a very short period of time if you are lucky enough to be in that top 0.0001%. And if you are, congratulations. Most of you don't make your money telling jokes. But sometimes the most famous black people in America are comedians. Kevin Hart, Dave Chappelle. I like Dave Chappelle, by the way. I think we'd have a great conversation if we were to ever meet because he thinks a lot like me. And I'm like, that's awesome. He has a superpower of being able to say the same things I would say, but he makes it funny. And that makes it more receptive to people. That's his genius. And that's what I love about Dave Chappelle. So no disrespect to comedians, but all black men are not built to tell jokes. All black men are not here to make you laugh. The third category, rappers. I know a million rappers, and I'm gonna guess about 95% of them don't make any money, but then there are some who do make some money. Killer Mike is a friend of mine, and D1 and Immortal Technique and a few other really cool rappers. I told you about my interactions with Kanye and stuff. I wouldn't call him a friend because I don't want to be his friend. But there are people out there that do that, but for the most part, that's very, very rare. So the fact that society has a structure that pretty much only accepts black men if you show up in a way that's entertaining to the masses, degrading sometimes to you and your culture, degrading to your women, degrading to your community, degrading to your lifestyle, right? The only way they'll accept you and love you is if you show up in a way that degrades yourself and the people you care about. That's a big problem. That's a big, big problem. And I personally think that this only solution to that, the only available solution is developing our own spaces and infrastructure where we can celebrate our own heroes for doing something other than playing a sport or telling a joke or busting a rap, right? We've got millions of black men and women that can build things and do engineering and build rocket ships and make automobiles and and run hospitals and teach children and stuff like that. And what's missing is not so much the resources. What's missing really is the mindset. The mindset's what's missing because you got 1.6 trillion a year to build with. So you're not poor. If African Americans were a country, we'd be one of the 10 richest countries on the planet. That's just a fact. We're right up there with Russia. Vladimir Putin he probably looks at the black community and says, wow, you guys have as much money as we have, and we've got our own schools, we've got our own hospitals, we have hypersonic missiles. We are a nation in every single way, and you guys are still kind of the undercard of the United States. You see yourselves as to some extent, many of you see yourselves as economic children who are not responsible for the difficult task of building a nation and running a nation. And because you're looking up to individuals that bring to you a culture of some degree of immaturity, irresponsibility, and instant gratification. Building infrastructure cannot be done typically by a person who is addicted to instant gratification. Building infrastructure is not built for the peacocks. The peacocks are not the ones who are going to do the humble, dirty, difficult, monotonous work required over a long period of time to build an institution like, say, the NFL. The NFL was built with people that got their hands dirty for several decades in a league where you could have once bought the Chicago Bears for $100. But they added economic value through blood, sweat, tears, and working quietly in the background to build something that was going to develop a massive, massive economic beast for their grandchildren. right? So you got to really look at culture when you're talking about wealth and building and all these other things. They're deeply connected, and so the idea of even honoring and looking up to rappers as somehow the greatest examples of black success is fundamentally flawed and problematic. There should be no almost no rapper or athlete or anybody on the planet that should be speaking to kids and saying giving speeches like, if you work hard, you can do anything. I'm not saying there's something wrong with that. I'm saying that if you're sitting here and you're 6'8", 240 pounds, and you're telling me that I can do anything, well, I can't be 6'8", 240 pounds, right? So that to some extent is a problematic kind of argument in the beginning. I think a better conversation should be, you've got everything you need. Get together with your friends, invest your money, get an education, learn how to build, get the knowledge and skills. If somebody won't open the door for you, you build a damn door. You build a building around the door. You put a table inside the building, and then you give yourself a seat at the head of that table, and then you allow others to compete to get a seat at your table. Opportunities are not something that other people give you. Opportunities are something that you can give to yourself. You can create an opportunity. Just like in sports, you can be a playmaker in your own life. A playmaker is an individual who, in a situation where there is no opportunity, they create one. They steal the ball. They get an interception. They make a big tackle. They throw the ball down the field. They make something happen even when nothing's happening. And that is what black children should be taught that they can do. That your life, your destiny, your outcomes are your accountability, your responsibility. You get it done. If you don't get it done, nobody will. You wait for Superman. Superman ain't coming. White folks ain't going to save you. Even black folks won't save you. Some people are going to sabotage you. Some people are going to try to fight you. You're going to have obstacles and adversaries. And the more adversaries you have, the more success you're accomplishing. Your haters are a blessing because your haters are a sign of success, because your haters are showing you respect by showing you that you have built something worthy enough and attention grabbing enough that I'm going to literally focus my energy on taking what you got, because what you got is now valuable. If you don't have something that people are trying to take, typically that means you have nothing of value. So what do you have of value? And when people try to take it, you say, thank you very much. I appreciate the compliment. I know you're trying to get this. I respect this. I walk around town with my beautiful wife. I see men look at my wife. I'm like, that's okay. That's good. That means he has good taste. But you can't have this because I've conquered this territory. This is my space. This is what we built. This is our house. This is our family. You can't have this. And that's what life is like. That's when you're truly living, is when you are able to get out in this world and compete. Black children have to be taught to compete. We already know how to compete in sports. We already know how to compete in hip hop. We already know how to compete in all these other areas. Why don't we compete in just the game of life? We should be competing in education, winning the science competitions, winning the math competitions, winning the chess matches. We should be competing in business. Resilience, man. You have to have resilience. Resilience means that, yes, if you come up the hill with your gun out, they're going to shoot back. There was a billionaire that told me, there's a white billionaire. He was talking to me and he's like, yeah, I checked out your platform and I like it. I said, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And he said, but one thing you got to understand, Boyce, is that you're talking about something that's a little bit different from what I typically hear. And I said, well, what's different about it? He said, because you're teaching black people how to compete. He said, and I can tell you in business and in life, when you're competing for something that other people want and you pull out your gun and you run up the hill with your gun out, they're going to shoot back. They're going to shoot back. And you have to keep on fighting. You can't just sit back and cry and go, sing a Negro spiritual. You shall overcome. Lord Jesus, they done took it again. They done burned it down. They done, every time we build some black Wall Streets, they comes and they just, all the white folks, they just come. When you talk like that, you're celebrating your adversary. I just want you to know that. When you sit around and you spend all the energy that could be spent building something, and you spend all that energy talking about how white folks won't let you do nothing, you're really worshiping them. You should put on a white hood and go to a Klan rally, because to some extent you are a white supremacist at that point. You're honoring them. You're saying, gosh, I wish I could have something, but y'all just so good that we can't get nothing. Like in a football game, imagine if a football team was like, well, we tried to score a touchdown, but every time we try to run the ball, they always tackle us, and then they got the interception. So this ain't right. They don't give us, they don't share none of the points with us. That clearly is an individual who never ever took a class on Powernomics. Because one thing that Dr. Claude Anderson says about power in his book Powernomics. The website's powernomics.com. Y'all should support this man. He's the godfather of all this. Without him, there is no Boyce Watkins. Let me tell you what he says in the beginning of his book Powernomics. Let's see. Let me try to um wealth inequality and inappropriate behavior are the two most fundamental problems facing Black Americans. Though it is not unusual to address the question of economic inequity, it is highly unusual to focus attention on the self-destructive behavior of Black people as a whole or Black individuals who mislead. He also says, very early in his book, he defines power. And he explains that power is something that people don't give to you. Power is the ability to pursue your agenda despite the opposition of others. Despite the opposition of others. So that he doesn't say, well, power is when you can pursue your agenda with the permission of white folks. Or power is when you can pursue your agenda when white people give you jobs. He doesn't say that. Power is something that you can obtain if a nice white man gives you an opportunity. He doesn't say that. He says power is the ability to pursue your agenda despite the opposition of others. And in my mind, because I'm a sports fan, all I think about is, oh, that's like football. When I watch my Ohio State Buckeyes, go Buckeyes, that's where I got my PhD. When I see my Buckeyes dominate the Oregon Ducks in the game last week, not one single time was there any scenario where the Oregon Ducks gave the Ohio State Buckeyes permission to score a touchdown. Not one single time. When Jermaine, what's his face? Jermaine Smith, I can't remember his name. I should know his name. He's this freshman. He's amazing. He catches the ball with one hand. He jumps in the air. He's super fast. He's an amazing athlete. When every time he scored a touchdown, never once did the defense say, "Hey, I like you. I like you, buddy. I think you're a good guy. I'm going to let you run right past me and score the touchdown that I would like to have for myself." Not one single time. So the thing about economics in America that I think we have to really understand and make sure our kids understand is that people don't tend to give away things they value. They don't give away things they value. So the only time they're going to give you something is when they're giving you something that's pretty much worthless. That's what they do. That's how capitalism works. So if you can't compete, then you will not eat. It's that simple in America. And so teaching that to our kids early and us teaching that with love and encouragement and giving them confidence and skill to pursue what they're supposed to do in this world. I think that's the best gift we can ever give kids. I think that that's the best legacy we can leave. And then if you invest some stock, buy some stock for them when they're young, buy it on a regular basis, and then hand them some resources, I think they can go out here and really, really fight and have something and not be sitting around begging and feeling bad for themselves. All right. So here, before we finish up, couple things I want to mention. Just a reminder, if you're not on the text list to come into the private Zoom for this class, we meet every morning at 10 a.m. Eastern. Pull out your phone, text the word morning to the number 87948. Text morning to the phone number 87948. Also, you can go to drboyceelevate.com, drboyceelevate.com if you live in another country or something like that. Again, I'll text you guys about tonight with Andre Hatchett in the mobile notary class he's doing on how to make money as a mobile notary. Miss Asada is teaching math to our kids. So she's a great person that you really want to know. Dr. Alicia, our resident therapist, and my lovely wife is doing her book club tonight. She's going to focus on relationship stuff, getting rid of the drama in your relationships, whether it's your friendships, your business relationships, or your romantic relationships. Because some of y'all need that help so you can find that husband, find that wife, or find that partner, that business partner, and be a good person in that relationship. And then tomorrow she's doing Mental Health Monday, which she brings in therapists to do mental health stuff. And so the last point I want to make on this in terms of Jay Z and Diddy, one other financial concept that you may want to consider in terms of why Jay Z and Diddy are in an economically dangerous situation is something that they in finance they call the signal jamming. And signal jamming is where people literally will spread a rumor that's even false as a strategic move in a competitive landscape. So rivals may exploit the fragility of market trust to harm a company. This aligns with the concept of signal jamming, where false signals are sent to disrupt investor confidence. Market participants unable to verify the truth quickly react by reducing their exposure to the company, causing a decline in the stock price. What does that mean? Well, that means that a lot of people are going to just stay away from you. A lot of corporations are going to back away from you just because they don't want to take a chance. Just like or even in the mafia boss world, sometimes I feel really bad. This is one of the reasons why I would never join the mafia is that there are lots of people who've been killed just because somebody thought they might have snitched, or they thought that they might, or they're sitting there, or they're thinking that they might have been the person who was the rat or the mole or whatever, right? And so just in case, just to be safe, they're like, well, let's just kill them just in case. So ultimately, when you talk about signal jamming, that can happen as well. And I believe black men are the most vulnerable to signal jamming. There was a guy that played at my alma mater, Ohio State. His name was not Maurice Claret. He was a great running back. They screwed him pretty bad. I like Maurice. Maurice is a friend of mine. Another guy that played for the Cowboys, Ezekiel Elliott. So Ezekiel Elliott had this girlfriend, and for whatever reason, these guys they all for some reason they like to date these melanin deficient women, and I just don't get it. Honestly, it's not my cup of tea, but whatever. I'm not judging. And anyway, Ezekiel had a melanin deficient girlfriend, and she really liked him, and she wanted to come into the party. And he was like, "I'm done with you. I don't want to date you no more. Don't leave." And she would not leave. She was standing outside. She's like half drunk. When I was teaching at Syracuse, I used to really hate the fact that we would encourage young people to drink so much because they just make so many stupid decisions while they're drinking, and they're already dumb because they're well, not dumb. I'm not gonna say when I was 18, I was dumb compared to what I was when I was like 27, right? So when you're 18, you're already making bad decisions, and then they're like, let's pour some alcohol on top of it on this undeveloped brain. They're like, there's nothing better for them to do. Like, I don't know, maybe study, but for whatever reason, we think college is this place you're supposed to go and begin your career as an alcoholic. So anyway, this young lady sitting outside, banging on the door, and she's trying to get in. And you know what she said that was really interesting, that was very telling, is she says, I'm a white girl. I can accuse you of beating me and it'll ruin your whole career. She said that. She said, I'm a white girl. I can accuse you of beating me up and I'll mess up your whole career. Again, because drunk people just tell everything, right? That's why my father, he was a police detective, or he did a lot of jobs. He ran the SWAT team. He ran the biggest district in our city, stuff like that. One thing he did was he was also a detective. And one thing he told me about being drunk is he said, don't hang out with drunks because drunks will reveal all secrets. Drunks just talk and they don't think about what they're saying. So because she's drunk, she says she gives the white girl secret. She's like, I can accuse you of whatever I want, and it's going to ruin your whole career. And what's interesting is that she did make an accusation later, and the Cowboys, I believe the Cowboys suspended him over this accusation, and there was no proof, no evidence, no nothing. And that is it might be an example of signal jamming because athletes are economic entities. Athletes are like shares of stock. They look at them as property. That's why they have the combine every year where they're like, look at how high that Negro can jump. Look at how strong he is. Look at how fast that boy can run. Because they're evaluating you as a financial asset. That's just the reality. And so as a financial asset, Ezekiel Elliott, his economic value was at risk because of this signal jamming phenomenon where this young lady understood, look, I'm a white woman. I can say anything about you. And I won't take you down because it's true, because it's obviously not, but I can take you down because it could be true. The fact that it could be the case that you did these things to me, that's enough to cause people to take concrete action and to definitely take your money. So because you could have done this, they will definitely take away your contract. Because you could be guilty, they will definitely take away real money based on a low probability accusation. And this has been something that's been used for a very long time. So, one of the reasons that it's very important to train your sons on this is that they have to be really thoughtful about avoiding situations that could cause them problems later on. Right. I knew a guy who is a high ranking executive at Chick-fil-A. He's a really smart young guy. He got a degree in engineering or something, and he's making hundreds of thousands of dollars working for Chick-fil-A. Well, he was at a bachelor party, and at the bachelor party, because I had to go, I was the best man, and the best man, you're supposed to follow the groom around. So there's these strippers at this bachelor party. I don't go to strip clubs. Sorry to disappoint, but that's not my thing. But it was really interesting. Strippers are very athletic. Most of them, it seems like, used to do gymnastics and dancing. Because I asked one of them, I said, you have really strong calf muscles. How did you get like you guys are strong? And she's like, yeah, I used to dance, right? And of course, they're all dancing to get through school. At least that's what they say. But anyway, so this guy was at this bachelor party, and the strippers come in, and I'm like, oh Lord, oh, we got strippers here. Okay, all right. And then the police got called because the music was too loud. And when the police knocked on the door, they're like, hey, can you turn it down? Da, 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 right. And this guy who's really smart, who works at Chick-fil-A, He's like, "Hey man, hey bro, I'll see you later, man." And he gives everybody five, and I saw exactly what he was doing. What he was doing was he was engaging in the act of what I would refer to as strategic risk management. He was strategically saying, "I don't know what's about to happen right now, but I don't want to be in the room when it does." And I completely understood it, and I understood that that's why he has such a successful career. See, one of the things that's interesting to me, in my opinion, is that I don't know if we do a good job of warning our boys and our girls too of just how much danger they're in. But I mean, it's really, I don't know if we warn them. I don't know if we let them know, like, look, this is the world's a dangerous place. There's a lot of people who've been killed for being in the wrong place at the wrong time, lost their jobs, lost their reputation, got sued, whatever, right? And what gives me kind of a what my gripe, my bone to pick with hip hop culture is that it trains you to engage in very risky behavior. Think I'm lying? Look at the Madam President was speaking about the hot girl, rappers. We now have these stripper rappers, Megan Thee Stallion, Cardi B, Lotto, all of them pretty much just like wear as little clothes as possible. And so there were women that were talking about like kind of going through the whole phase. Like, hey, every girl should have a whole phase. That's what they were saying, right? And I was watching this and I said, this is interesting because I wonder if anybody's seen the HIV rates for young black women and how high they are. Does anybody know that a black woman is 70 times, 70, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe it's seven, maybe, you know what, maybe it's 17. Let me say 17. It could be 70, but let's say it's 17. 17 times more likely to catch HIV than a white woman. Did you know that black women are the number one leading group for new HIV cases in America? Right. And so when you have a culture that's like, oh yeah, let it all hang out, just live your best life, do your thing, and don't think about the consequences, that doesn't mean the consequences go away. That just maybe means that you're not aware of the consequences because nobody's talking to you about it. Because that's not a cool guy conversation. That's not a hip or lit conversation to have. It's the conversation that comes from some nerdy old out of touch 53-year-old black man with a PhD because he who thinks he's better than everybody else, who thinks he's uppity, right? That's what it sounds like to some people. Like, oh, you don't understand. You're out of touch, doc. I'm like, no, I'm actually in touch. I know more about it than you do because I've lived longer and I have dead friends to prove it. And I have friends that are in jail. I have people I've known that lost everything. I have people I know that have paid a price beyond anything you can ever imagine. So maybe you might just take heed to what I'm saying. Plus, I look at the statistics and the data. So, so when you're talking about wealth, you have to talk about risk. And when you're talking about risk, you have to talk about choices and culture. Do you understand? A lot of your risk that affects your wealth and not just your money, and I'm not talking about your money, I'm talking about all the things that are more valuable than money. I'm talking about your wealth. All the risk that affects your wealth is heavily impacted by just the environment that you're in. A lot of situations happen because you were even in the situation. If you weren't even in the situation, then it couldn't have occurred. So this is where consciousness comes into play because consciousness is where you're taking a step back and you're not making a hard decision because you're stuck in a hard place. You're making the decision before the decision so you don't have to make the decision. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like that guy who said, I don't want to have to make a hard decision as to whether or not I'm gonna tell my wife or not if I got out of jail or if I'm gonna take the money off my credit card for bail or off my check out of my checking account. I'm not having to make that decision because I'm gonna make the decision before the decision. So I think that with our kids, we got to teach them how to make the decision before the decision. Before you make a decision as to whether or not you're gonna, stand up for your best friend in the middle of a gunfight or not, I'm gonna make the decision about choosing who my friends are, so I never have to make that decision. Or like these even little things like you ever see these times where people expect like if some thug comes up to your woman and says something, you're supposed to stand up to the thug and get shot and shot in front of your girl because you're trying to be a man and everything. I'm not picking a woman like that. Like I don't want to be with a woman who's gonna make me have to make a decision like that. So I was careful about picking the kind of woman or women I would hang out with. I'm not trying to be gangster for you. I'll be gangster for the black community. I'll be gangster on this economics. I'll be gangster on this intellectual thing, but I'm not trying to be out here in the street like a thug because that's not really what I'm interested in. I know enough thugs to know not to be one. Most of my thug friends, gangster friends, killer friends, they're not happy that they had to kill people. I don't want to be in situations that requires me to make such an extreme decision. And that sort of strategic thinking should be discussed more. Also, it's the kind of thinking they don't want you to have as a black person. They want you thinking like a child. They want you to put yourself in one dumb situation after another and then make a dumb decision because you're in a dumb situation. So you're playing stupid games, so you're winning stupid prizes, and they want us to just be stupid. I really believe that. Did y'all know that research studies show that the more entertainment you consume, the more it basically melts the strategic part of your brain? Did y'all know that? The prefrontal cortex, that's what they call it. The prefrontal cortex, which is what separates you from an animal, by the way, it's the part that allows you to play chess, not checkers, to make long-term strategic decisions. That part of your brain is actually not exercised properly when you're sitting and consuming entertainment all day. And guess which community, guess which group of people is just notorious for consuming more entertainment than any other group of people. We watch more TV, we listen to more radio, we scroll more on social media. It's us. So I believe that there is a strategic plot that's been in place for a very long time to minimize the amount of strategic thinking that black people do. And an easy remedy, in my opinion, is that when we're sitting with our kids and we're educating our kids and we're giving our kids the skills they need to survive, then we're putting them in spaces where they're going to learn how to think outside the box. They're not even going to get inside the box. So they're not going to be living in the trap. They're not going to be making trap-like decisions. They're going to be making strategic decisions that say, I'm going to be thoughtful about what situations I put myself into so that I don't get stuck between a rock and a hard place. That's it. In fact, one analogy I would say is I remember I saw this story. It was really sad about a guy who was robbing banks to pay for his daughter. He had to pay child support and get stuff for his daughter, and he robbed a bank. And his mother, was pleading, and he got 10 years in prison. And his mother was pleading for him, and my heart went out for him, because he said I only did it because that was the only choice I had, um, to provide for my daughter. And what made me sad about this story, like I empathize completely. I completely understood. I really don't think he should have gotten 10 years in prison at all. But I was thinking, like, okay, so you had to make a hard decision, but there were a lot of decisions before that decision that put you in that position where you had to make that decision. Like, I really wish I could have talked to him when he was 5 years old and given him skills on all the different ways there are to make money so you don't have to rob a bank to feed your kids. You see, but this requires the intelligent use of time. This requires strategy. This requires preparation, right? Preparation is the key to success. I say that to my child and our kids every day. Every day I say it to our kids. I said it to her this morning when I dropped off for her dance competition. Um, so preparation is one of those things that involves the strategic and intelligent use of time so that you prepare for the situation before it even arises, so you can even decide if you want to be in the situation. Sun Tzu, in The Art of War, he said battles are won actually before they even start. Most battles are won before they begin. So do that when you're talking about the kids, talking about yourself, talking about your life. I encourage you to add that to your arsenal of thinking that will allow you to be where you want to be. Okay. All right. Now, before we head out, a couple more things. Don't forget tonight. I'll text you guys about the stuff we have coming up in the Black Business School. If you want to be in the private Zoom for this class, text the word morning, MORNING, to the phone number 87948. Text morning to 87948. And also, you can go to drboyceelevate.com to join drboyceelevate.com. And then also this week, we're going to do Powernomics on Wednesday. Wednesday night, and we're going to do stock market investing on Tuesday afternoon. We do that every single Tuesday. So we have you covered. We have lots of stuff going on in the school. We got really great things coming up in 2025 and beyond, 26, et cetera. So we got you covered. So God bless you guys. Thank you guys for hanging out. I appreciate it. And also, last but not least, my book is called The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. And you can get a copy at drboycebooks.com. And those of you that are asking about Prime, our stock options program, we don't have any discounts or specials going on for that, but we are going to meet this week. So you will get a text invite if you'd like to join us for that as well.